We are live. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. My name is James Lynch. He is JHK. If you haven't watched this show before, basically we preview an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, we're going to be looking at the Derek Brunson, Darren Till middleweight fight, which is going to be coming up. It's actually been switched around a little bit, but the official date on it now is September 4th. Before we get into that, John, how's it going, man? How's everything?
Everything's working really well, man. Did a couple good interviews this week. You can't ask for much better, in this life.
There you go. Grateful. Gratitude. It's all good. Shout out to producer Michael, who's making all the magic happen behind the scenes. Before we get into this, again, I know I've said that 2 times already. Probably don't need to say it as much, but download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. That's what we're going to be referencing here today. I've already got my picks in for PFL, for Bellator, and for the UFC card this weekend. So just, we'll be referencing that throughout the show. Like I mentioned, it is the best app out there if you guys are looking to pick fights and bet fights and all that stuff. Also, I want to remind everyone to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. It's an easy way to support the channel. And finally, if you have any questions, just post them in the chat. We like to keep them related to the fight, but if not, we can talk about whatever. This is basically like first half preview, second half Q&A. So we're going to dig into it right now. So like I mentioned, this fight has been moved around a little bit. The fight was supposed to take place, I believe, on August 14th. They decided to move it to September 4th. Part of the reason, I believe, was the fact that they were trying to do this card in London, right? Because Darren Till's obviously, very popular fighter. Even outside the UK, he's a very popular fighter, but they wanted to do this one in London. Travel restrictions, the COVID stuff made it not possible. So it looks from what I'm seeing, that this fight will be taking place it's saying England as well, but we'll see if they do end up going there or they go to Vegas. But for now, it looks like it's going to happen in England, just not on the original date that they wanted. But in terms of how we got here, this fight makes a lot of sense. Darren Till coming off the loss to Robert Whittaker, Derek Brunson on a nice winning streak heading into this fight. It made a lot of sense here. For me, it's a guy until can he still continue to be a contender in this division? We'll find out as he fights a guy on a winning streak in Derek Brunson. Just your thoughts first on the matchup, John, and how we sort of got here.
The matchup, I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of the matchup, to be honest with you, because like you just said, Derek Brunson is on a winning streak until he could possibly be on a 4-fight losing streak, to be honest with you, right? That Kelvin Gastelum fight was very, very close, and a lot of people thought Kelvin Gastelum won that fight, right? So when you look at his record, does he deserve a Derek Brunson? I guess the UFC feels like he does because, man, they've been gifting him with great matchups throughout his whole UFC career. If we go back to the beginning.
I couldn't disagree with you more. That Gastelum fight was pretty I was in New York when that fight happened. Gastelum had every opportunity to win that fight. Till came in late, if you remember. There was some concerns about him missing weight. Not only does he make weight, he beats Gastelum. Gastelum had all the clout in the world at that point because the fight prior to that was a fight against Adesanya where he dropped him. He was able to come back, Adesanya was able to come back and win the belt. But I mean, Gastelum's stock was huge at that point. And then he was in my opinion, he was kind of given a bit of a layup against Till. Till moving up a weight class on a bit of a losing streak. He ends up losing that one. But I don't have an issue with it simply because Brunson's number 5. You've got Darren Till, who is ranked a little bit lower, but Till's very popular. You had Jared Cannonier and Costa booked, so they were out of the equation. Vittori got the title shot. Who else is Brunson going to fight at this point? He's not going to fight for the title. So it was sort of a lack of options, I think, as well. Maybe the one guy in there is Jack Hermanson, but again, they felt that it was better for him to fight Edmund Shabazian at that point. So don't have an issue with the matchmaking. I mean, I get it in terms of I'd say over the last couple fights, this is probably the least notable opponent that Darren Till has had. If you look at the last couple of opponents, it's been Whittaker, Gastelum, Moswell, and Woodley. Like those are all really notable fighters, former title challengers, former, everything. Like they're a bit more notable there as well. But we'll agree to disagree on that sort of point there as well. But let's get into Darren Till. He's a guy that has just run into a lot of bad luck lately. We'll go through some of the rescheduled stuff and all that. But Darren Till, 28 years old, 6 feet tall with the 75-inch reach, a former welterweight. Remember, he had a tough time making the weight. You could attribute that to, the Moswell knockout loss, to a few other things where, you just saw that he was just too big for the division. So him moving up, I think, has been nothing but a positive move in terms of what he's been able to do. I know he's, 1-1, but still, I think he looks a lot better at middleweight, being a little bit healthier than that. I mentioned the canceled fights and stuff. So he was supposed to initially fight Robert Whittaker in UFC 252. They ended up moving that fight back to July. So he fights Whittaker, he loses. Good effort against Whittaker, to be honest. I mean, that was a fight where in that first round, Till cracked Whittaker. Whittaker was able to survive and basically just took over the rest of the fight. But it was a fight where I think Darren Till's stock actually went up because the big question was, was the Gastelum fight just a fluke? Was it Gastelum who didn't show up, or was it the fact that Till actually showed up? he showed up in that Whitaker fight. He did lose, but I think it was one of those fights where, you go, to the distance with a guy like Robert Whitaker, very impressive. And I actually thought he did better than Gastelum did against Whitaker as well. So there's something to be said for that. Now, he's supposed to fight on December 5th. He got an injury. He's supposed to fight Jack Hermanson. I was really looking forward to that fight. Of course, Hermanson ended up fighting Marvin Vettori instead. He was then scheduled to fight Vettori in April earlier this year, but Vettori getting Till getting a collarbone injury. And then we mentioned again that he was supposed to fight Brunson in August, and that got moved around. So he's had 4 rescheduled things happen within the last year, 2 of those being injury, 2 of him being out. So Till's really looking to get back here. And I think remind fans that he is one of the bigger, stars in the UFC. At welterweight, I mentioned him like having a tough time cutting weight, but he did have a good record there. He only had the 1 loss to 2 losses, Woodley and Moswell at welterweight. But outside of that, some good wins over Donald Cerrone. I don't think he beat Stephen Thompson, teach their own, but I think that's one that should have gone the other way. But overall, he had a pretty good record, and he was actually undefeated prior to fighting Woodley as well. And Woodley, let's get real here. He got a little bit exposed in that fight, right? Woodley was able to take him down. Woodley was able to control him. It was probably, in fact, looking back at it now, that's the best win Woodley's had since then, right? Like he looked dominant in that fight. It looked like the old Woodley until had no answers for it. So again, Darren Till, much bigger deal a couple of years ago in terms of when he fought Woodley. He's, stock's taken a hit, but I think that one Gastelum fight in between there has really sort of made it known that he can compete in the middleweight division. So your thoughts on Darren Till and what he brings to the table here?
Darren Till, he's looked really good at welterweight. He was impressive. He went in there, got the first round finish over Cowboy Cerrone. I think that's what blew him up. And, because before that, really, who was he fighting? He fought Lynch and Ariad. I don't even know who these guys are. And he went to a draw with Nicholas Dalby, right? Like, you wouldn't expect that from like a major star, right? But that Cowboy Cerrone fight, he came out there and he showed everybody what he's capable of, got the first round finish. And then the Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight, that was some home cooking, right? He was in... Was he in Manchester or was he in Liverpool?
Yeah, so interesting. Right? I'll tell you guys, most people won't care about this, but I'm going to mention the story anyway. So if you remember, initially they were trying to do Darren Till and Gunnar Nelson for that card, and it was supposed to be in Ireland. And believe it or not, I'm never going to Ireland again. I mean, I love Ireland. It's just too far to go or whatever. But I had a wedding to go to in Ireland. One of my good friends who was getting married, and I was going to try and cover that card, and the timing would have actually worked out. And then they switched it up, I think because of something to do with Nelson, and they gave Wonderboy the fight in Liverpool instead for Darren Till. So yeah, Till ends up winning it. I was disappointed I didn't get to see Darren Till fight on that card, but still, Wonderboy absolutely got robbed in that fight, in my opinion.
Yeah. And, I think it was just because of that last round, right? I believe he knocked him down or whatever, right? So I would have to go back and watch that from first round to the
same here. Now that I say it, I mean, it has been a couple of years. Yeah, it's
been a while. But like you said, I agree with you. The Woodley fight, that was Woodley's best performance, his last best performance. And even Masvidal, to be honest with you, what is it? The Till fight was his last great performance, wasn't it? I don't think like that.
No, he had Askren after that.
Oh, did he? Oh, well,
yeah,
that was just one shot, right? I'm talking about
you're right,
like,
though. I mean,
a fight playing out, and they're getting into exchanges and stuff. I felt like Jorge Masvidal looked his best in that fight against Till, because Till was much bigger. I feel like he was much more dangerous on the feet, and he went out there and knocked him out, right? Nate Diaz fight, not as impressive as this one, I believe. So it shows you that, Till, he's gone through the gauntlet, man, of like superstar, like guys that will go out there and finish you. And he survived, but he's lost most of the fights, though. Let's be honest with you. He's lost. Who did he beat? He beat Gastelum. That's it. And then he beat, he beat Thompson, which is controversial. And then he beat Cerrone. And we're looking at Cerrone right now like should he even fight again? Should he even fight anymore, right? So, but back then, Cerrone was doing his thing, though. Got to give him credit. Now, Till's going through these injuries, right? I believe he tore his MCL in the Whitaker fight, and then he goes into camp to prepare for Jack Hermanson, and he breaks his collarbone. And now it's like, what's going on with his body, man? I'm concerned about Till a little bit.
Could be a training thing as well. You're right, and he's only 28, so it's not like this guy's in his like mid 30s and it's just old age catching up to him. Something he's doing wrong, whether it's not training properly or not. I don't know. I mean, we could sit here and pretend to be doctors all we want, but but it isn't a good look. I mean, to see someone injured that much, it does get a bit concerning that he's pulled out of so many fights. But I'll turn this around on you just for 1 second, because like there's 2 ways you can look at this. You can look at it the way you have, which could be entirely true. Maybe Till goes out there and Brunson out wrestles him and completely dominates him and whatever, and maybe that happens. I mean, it could. Anything can happen in a fight. But then there's the other side of it, which is just that he just lost to Robert Whittaker, who's fighting for the title next. And he did beat Kelvin Gastelum, who, yes, I mean, Gastelum lost his last fight, but he does have a win over Ian Heinisch. Like, it's tough to say, right, where he sort of fits in the grand scheme of things, which is why I like this fight, because I think it does make sense. Because again, you've got a guy in Brunson who has a nice winning streak, maybe not over the competition that Till's fought. Well, definitely hasn't fought the guys that Till's fought, at least recently. And with Till, it's like, is he still up there? Was it that Whittaker couldn't put him away, or is it Till's that good? I mean, we're going to find out all those answers in this fight. So might as well move along to Derek Brunson in this fight. 22-7 record. So a lot of experience going into this one. He is 37 though, John. I think that's something we forget. Derek Brunson is not a young buck here. He is 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. So Brunson going to have the height and reach advantage in this matchup. Now, we mentioned the winning streak there. It started back actually in May of 2019, the win over Elias Theodorou, which was just, I think, Theodorou's, I think it was third loss in his career. So that was a good win. Of course, he beat Ian Heinisch after that. Heinisch, I believe, was on a nice winning streak prior to that fight as well. Absolutely destroyed Edmund Shabazian. That was where people woke up to like, okay, maybe Edmund's not as good as we thought he was, because Brunson just completely dominated to the point of where he finished Shabazian in that third round. And then the Kevin Holland fight, which, I mean, I had a good chuckle about that one. I can't remember if we previewed that fight or not, but I just remember a lot of people being like, Holland's going to knock him out. And it's like, no, Holland can't, like, he's not that great of a wrestler. And of course, Brunson just overwhelmed him. And that was the fight that drove me nuts, because Holland's talking all this smack and he's losing. It's like, if you're winning, that's one thing. But for him to talk that much smack and lose was not a very good look as well. So credit to Brunson. I think part of his success has had to do with the fact that he switched up camps. Of course, if he was a long-time member of Jackson Wink, he's since been at Sanford MMA the last couple of years. That camp is just loaded with talent right now. So many fighters flocking over there, including Ian Heinisch, who he just fought. Brendan Allen's there, Phil Hawes. You really are seeing sort of a really and Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler. I mean, the list goes on. There's just they've really boosted up that camp, and they've really sort of made their mark, especially this year in MMA as well. So again, do want to point out though, like Kevin Holland. If Kevin Holland fought Darren Till, I'd absolutely pick Darren Till every single day of the week. I think that Till would beat Edmund Shabazian. I think Till would beat all of these opponents, to be honest, now that I'm looking at it here. And then you look at his losses, it's the same sort of thing as Till, right? Adesanya, he did get finished in the first round. Adesanya hasn't had a lot of first round finishes, but still he got finished there. Lost to Jacare Souza, which that was back in 2018. I know that's a few years ago, but still, looking at what Jacare's become, that's not that great of a loss to have. Did beat Machida, beat Dan Kelly, lost to Silva and Whittaker. So you look at who Brunson's losing to, some of the, the better fighters in the division. But I think that's why I think this fight makes a lot of sense, because is it the fact that Brunson's losing to good guys and beating guys he's not supposed to, and that he's on this, contenders level, or is it the fact that he's just fighting easier guys and he's looking good in the process? We're going to find out for sure in this fight as well. Now, we know Brunson's got good wrestling. That was one of the things, if you remember his UFC debut, was against Chris Liebman. That was one of the worst fights ever. If you remember that fight, I was way back in 2012. And it was just like, he just wrestled Chris Liebman. And it was just like, I remember people thinking like, man, this is not good at all. And, since then he's improved the stand-up a bit. He's worked on a few things, and we have seen him, like we saw in the Shabazian fight. He does have some hands as well. The thing that does concern me about Brunson, though, as well, is that he does get hit a lot. Even against Holland, he got hit. He's shored up his striking defense a little bit, where I think maybe the old Derek Brunson might have got knocked out by Kevin Holland, but still, it's Kevin Holland, who's not a contender whatsoever. Love Kevin Holland, love him on social media, love the fact that he fights all the time, but Kevin Holland's not a contender. He's just a fan favorite, and that's what sort of blinded a lot of fans to that last fight. But yeah, Brunson, like I said, has all the momentum here, 4 straight wins. How do you look at Brunson in this fight? Because again, I look at this as striker versus grappler or wrestler, and Brunson's also got a good ground game as well too.
Yeah. Well, like you said, his debut was against Chris Liebman, right? He went out there and wrestled like he's supposed to, and I feel like he got caught up in that hype and kind of got lost in who he really was. And then after that, he kind of went out there and started to do this brawling, like going in there with his chin up, just swinging for the fences. And it worked out for him for many, many fights, man. And then he started losing, right? He lost to Whittaker. He lost to Silva. He won a couple more. Then he lost to Jacare, and then he lost to Izzy, right? Then everybody's thinking like, okay, this guy, he's a gatekeeper, right? He's a gatekeeper. He's just going to keep the gate. And I believe after the Izzy fight, that's when he went to Sanford. If you know more than me, I don't know, but
no, I'm almost positive, because that was back when I had access to interviewing Derek Brunson. And I remember, I think if you watch, I had somewhere, I forget which outlet I did it for, but he talks about, I'm at Sanford. I was like, oh, that's cool. It was Hard Knocks back then, but yeah, it was the same.
Yeah, that's right, Hard Knocks. So he goes there, and he kind of turns his career around a little bit, right? He switches things up a little bit. We still see glimpses of the old Brunson in his fights, and like you said, he does still get hit a lot, because that's the glimpses of the old Brunson. But he's kind of become more patient with his attacks now, right? I think working with Henry Hoof and Greg Jones, they molded him, right? And I feel like every fight he comes out, he looks better. And especially in the Kevin Holland fight, Kevin Holland was talking all kinds of trash, and he didn't get involved in it, right? He was just focused on his game plan and what he wanted to do. And I felt like he showed a lot in that fight, and it might carry on to this next fight, right? It might help him, because Till's going to talk to him too. Till's not a guy that's going to stay quiet either. But I feel like right now, Brunson, he's probably at the best he's going to ever be. And he might get better, right? So is that enough to beat Till? That's the big question heading into this fight.
Do we have the odds? If we can put up the odds on the screen here, I'm curious to see. I believe Till is the favorite, but we'll have to see sort of what things are, sort of how everyone's sort of feeling about this fight. But as far as our pick, we're gonna get to that now. I think let me just double check here. I think we got some odds on here. Just looking at some of the other things here. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of places having Till as so there you go. Darren Till, the -140 favorite. Sorry, I stumbled on that a little bit. Derek Brunson +115. I agree with the odds here. I think they've got this one right. I think Till should be a slight favorite in this fight just because of the level of competition of who he's fought, just because of the fact that I think if this stays standing, you've got to give the edge to Till here. I think he's the better striker, and we have seen Brunson knocked out before. But the reason I think Brunson deserves this +115 at being close as opposed to like a +200, +300 is because he's got that wrestling in his back pocket. Has Darren Till fixed that part of his game from the Woodley fight where he's not going to get taken down at will? He's not going to get bullied around a little bit. I mean, say what you want about Till moving up and maybe he's not going to be as strong. I still think that this is the right weight class for him. I think Till's gotten bigger since he's gone up to middleweight, and I think that's going to pay off. Now, the injuries are concerning. The loss to Whitaker is concerning. Again, he really needs to win this because if he doesn't, where the heck does Till go from here if he loses, right? Like, what do you do with him? I know he's 28. I know you could still build him back up again, but still, like, that would be another setback here against another contender, and you'd have to sort of figure it out. But here's the other thing on the flip side. Derek Brunson's 37. This is a great winning streak. This is probably it for him if he wants to run for a title. I know that's crazy to say on a guy on a 4-fight win streak, but this is a shark pool at 185. You've got other fights out there. You've got Cannonier, right? If he beats Gaslam, you still got Jack Hermanson, despite what everyone says. I think Hermanson's still a contender in that division. You've still got Adesanya. You've got Whitaker probably fighting next. There's just so many contenders right now that one loss for Derek Brunson probably will not get him a title shot. He'd have to do something amazing to change the minds of people if he loses this fight. So there's a lot on the line there, a lot of pressure here for Derek Brunson. And again, the closer you get to 40, the more likely it's not you're going to pull it around, unless your name's Jan Blachowicz, but usually it's not likely to happen here. So what do I think is going to happen in this fight? What's going to be my pick? I think Darren Till takes the fight, because here's what I think is going to happen, John. I think they're going to keep it standing. I think Brunson's going to try some takedowns. I think Till has worked enough on that. He'll probably stop the first few. Maybe Brunson gets 1 or 2 takedowns, but I think Till has learned enough since that Woodley fight, because that was back in 2018. I think he's learned enough where if he does get taken down, he's going to figure out a way to get back up. And if it does stay standing, here's the one thing with Till that Derek Brunson's last couple of opponents don't have. I'm going to quickly run over them one more time. Kevin Holland, Edmund Shabazian, Ian Heinisch, Elias Theodoro. The only guy in that list really is Shabazian that I think has some legit knockout power. I mean, Holland has knockout wins as well, but as far as like legit knockout power, Shabazian has that. We've seen him do that against Brad Tavares. We've seen him finish other fights as well very quickly. But I would argue that Till might even be more powerful than him. And Till's done it against better competition, in my opinion, knocking out a Cerrone. Like, say what you want about Cerrone losing, but there's a handful of fights where he hasn't been finished early on. And to get finished by a guy like Till really says a lot about what he can do as well. So what I think is going to happen is Darren Till's going to keep this standing. He's going to get the better shots. He's going to slowly wear away at Brunson. Like I said, Brunson might get a takedown or two, but it's going to end up staying standing. And at some point, John, Darren Till's going to catch Derek Brunson. Kevin Holland couldn't, because Kevin Holland's not as of a complete fighter as Darren Till is. Also, Darren Till, I think, is better overall, and he's got more power, in my opinion, too. So I think Till catches Derek Brunson, 3rd or 4th round finish, and gets him back in the conversation of being a title contender. So that's my pick. Who are you going with, and how do you think it gets done?
All right, with Darren Till, right? When you look at his striking, you break it down. He's very crisp, right? Powerful, right? He reminds me of, what a pure power striker would look like, and he's very technical, but he's very limited too. When you look at him, he throws the left kick, he throws elbows, short elbows once in a while, and he just has that 1-2 down the pipe. Really, that's what he has mostly, right? When you see him knock somebody down, that's what he's throwing. Like when he knocked out Wonder Boy, he threw that straight left hand and clipped him, right? And it works, and he's very accurate with it. But I feel like you can't just have that, because one thing that, like you said, Brunson has is a wrestling. So he comes in with that 1-2. He just dips under and gets under those legs, man, and dumps him on his back. And the one thing about Brunson, if you watched his last 2 fights, his takedowns are all diverse. They're not like the same double leg takedown against the fence or anything like that. He's got trips, you know what I mean? Like all kinds of different styles of takedowns. So I feel like he's going to eventually be able to get Darren Till down. And when you see Darren Till on his back, he's not very good off his back. Robert Whittaker took him down, beat him up. You know what I mean? Who else took him down? Woodley took him down, beat him up from the top, right? I feel like Brunson could do that. I feel like if he does get him down, he might get back up, but he's going to get him down again. He's going to be relentless with it, right? And I see like them at Sanford having a game plan like that for him, and he's going to go out there and follow that, because I believe he believes his coaches. I think that's so important for him to believe his coaches, because for many years I believe like he was just kind of like he had coaches, but he just did whatever he wanted to do in the cage. Now it's different for Brunson. He knows that there's much more on the line, and he's going to be much more cerebral. And when you look at his run, he was an underdog against Hyon. He was an underdog against Sabazian. He was underdog against Holland. He's an underdog against Till. He's going to go continue that streak and upset Darren Till. And I feel like he's going to get him in a submission. He hasn't submitted somebody in a long time, but I think Brunson's going to get him down, and he's going to be able to beat him up, and then he's going to be able to slide in something on the ground, a Kimura or a choke or something, and he's going to submit him, you know. But it's gonna take a time. It's not going to be like an early finish. If it's early, you know, I'll go with Till, right? Till is the one that comes out blazing, and he has the power. But Brunson does have the power too. Are they going to brawl? I don't think so. I think Brunson's going to be a lot smarter.
Very well said. Again, if you're betting this fight, be very careful, because I could see this one going either way. Honestly, I don't say that too often with fights, but like the odds indicate, very close fight. I could see Till knocking him out. I could see Brunson submitting him or decision, sort of grinding him out as well. By the way, just one more quick thing on the Holland thing. Like, you got to remember though, there's a few times in MMA history where fans like override how good a fighter is, and Holland is a prime example of that. And I love it. And again, I like Kevin Holland. I'm not trying to trash the guy, but it's just the optics of it. He didn't have a single win over a ranked opponent in that winning streak, and then he fights Brunson, and everyone all of a sudden is like he's going to win. It reminds me of when Paige Van Zandt fought Rose Namajunas. Paige was the favorite in that fight, and looking back now, it's like, how on earth could you think that? Same thing with Rousey when she fought Nunes. Like, there's so many times when like the popular fighter ends up being the betting favorite, and I think that was a case in the Holland fight, because I remember looking at that and being like, that, come on, like. That's going to happen. So, all right, let's get to questions. Before we do that, I got to come up with a different catchphrase. I keep saying that. Make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. Follow along with us there. We got our picks, and we're going to do our underdog picks, by the way, a little bit later in the show as well. But keep the questions coming as well, and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We're always trying to grow this channel. Jose Flores, we're going to start with him. Why is Wonderboy the only active welterweight aside from Usman to actually fight a top 5 guy? Everyone else is waiting or fighting for meaningless fights. Well, it's the optics of it, right? Like, look, a lot of people are giving Colby crap for not wanting to, take a fight in between the Woodley win. But, if you're ranked number 1, it's kind of a tough spot to be in, right? Because, like, sure, he could fight a Leon Edwards. He could fight whoever. Well, you lose that, then it's like, and I know you should fight anyone and whatever, but I mean, Colby has a strong case in my opinion. I don't buy this whole, you got to show me something. Like, it's funny when people reference Colby, they keep referencing the fight with Usman that he lost, but they keep forgetting he beat Woodley in between there. And yes, Woodley is not the same Woodley, but at the same time, he does have a win. And last time I checked, Colby's had the closest fight with Usman since before Woodley, right? I mean, there might have been a fight with Usman before that was closer, but he's had the closest fight. So I don't have an issue with him getting the shot. So there's a bit of, sort of posturing there as well. And keep in mind as well, Colby was the interim champion. They stripped him. Because he didn't want to fight Woodley, I believe it was in Dallas. Darren Till ended up getting that fight, which is interesting. We're talking about him. Colby wasn't cleared by the doctors. So then they gave the fight to Usman after that as kind of a way to punish Colby. So he had to fight, what was it? Robbie Lawler.
Oh, Robbie Lawler.
He had to fight Robbie Lawler, if you remember, right? And that at the time was kind of risky because Lawler still, a lot of people felt like Lawler still had knockout power. So he took that fight. Then he fights Usman. He loses. Yes, he lost. I mean, there's no debate there, but I thought it was close going into that 5th. And then he fights Woodley again in a fight that, I mean, most people felt like he was going to win. He did win. He finished Woodley, something that Gilbert Burns wasn't able to do. And then now he wants to try and get a title. So we could, that's just sort of my reasoning for Colby in terms of him not taking fights. With Leon, it's just been bad luck. With Burns, I mean, Burns has been pretty active. He fought for the title. And now he's fighting Thompson again. Thompson's just been injuries, right? That's been part of it. Like, he would fight way more if he wasn't so banged up all the time. Luque, not sure. Luque, though, is fighting Chiesa now, so they finally booked him up. Chiesa, same deal. Chiesa had injuries. Masvidal fight Usman. Magny's been active. Bilal Muhammad's been active. So you get what I'm saying here. Like, I get where you're coming from, but there are a lot of circumstances that have led us to this slow-moving division, so to speak.
Well, with Colby, man, he's in a spot where, like you said, he's sitting at number 1. So what do? You fight somebody, or you just wait until Usman's ready to fight? He's ready to defend the title again. And I think that's what Colby's doing. He's probably hearing things behind the scenes, people telling him like, hey, man, chill out. Usman, he needs this much time. And then he's probably going to end up, signing a contract to fight you. But I don't know, man. It's weird because they hate each other so much. And then Usman doesn't want to reward Colby for, because he doesn't like him. And he said he already beat him. And to be honest with you, the first fight, it was one of the greatest welterweight fights of all time, dude. Like, how would you not want to see that again, right? And it was a title fight. How do you not
realize that's going to be a more popular fight than probably Wonderboy or Leon Edwards? I mean,
because
realistically,
Nate Diaz is there. That's why. Did you see today or yesterday?
I know they're talking to each other. Well, okay, here's the thing I don't like about Usman is that, just be honest with people. We're not dumb, right? Mm-hmm. Like, don't sit here and say that you got to show me something, Colby. Moswell lost to you. He didn't even have a fight in between, and he took the fight. Just say, all he has to do is say this: Moswell is a money fight, and it's a winnable fight for me. He could even play the race card if he wanted to. He could even say, like, I think Colby's racist. I don't want to give him the opportunity. He could play that, and I'd believe it more. But for him to say, like, oh, he's got to show me something, it's like, come on, dude. Like, who he's ranked number 1. Who's he supposed to fight that's ahead of him? That's you. So that's where I kind of I lose kind of the argument about, what he's trying to say and stuff. And then, the whole Edwards thing, I mean, that sucks for Leon. Like, it's just so stupid that people are talking about this 5th round as opposed to Leon dominating him the whole fight. Like, it's crazy. So I don't know, but yeah, I think, I mean, they can't give Nate Diaz the title shot. They do that, that's going to be crazy. I think they're going to, I think if Wonderboy beats Burns, they might go that route.
I'm just sick and tired of everybody just hanging on every word Nate Diaz says or tweets.
You're telling me.
It's just like, it gets old, man. It's like, go win some fights, dude. Like, who did you beat? You beat Anthony Pettis. And where's Anthony Pettis right now? He's fighting for the PFL, right? And Anthony Pettis, and he's not even he's not even a welterweight. He's a lightweight, to be honest with you, right? He was just fighting at welterweight because he wanted different matchups. But it's I don't know. The fight to make is Covington versus Usman because of the history. Their first fight was great. Covington sitting at number 1. It makes sense. Leon Edwards, yes, he does deserve a shot, and he's one of the options. But man, he just doesn't do any favors for himself, right?
He's got the worst luck, man. He really does. Like, I don't think anyone's unluckier than him. The eye poke against Bilal Muhammad, and now this fight where everyone's talking about the knockdown. Like, what do you do? And then like who would he even fight? Because like, okay, this was the scenario that I put out there. I said you could do Colby and Usman, let Leon wait a little bit longer, and you can fight the winner, and then Wonderboy can fight the winner of that. I don't know. Like, I know these guys are not getting any younger, but still, it's like, I think you could still make it happen. Like, Leon's got a 10-fight unbeaten streak. There's no reason he should have to fight someone else. But
Bilal, you see Bilal too. He's going hard at Leon right now, man. Like,
going hard at Leon. He's going hard at Colby. Like, and you know who that is behind the scenes, probably pulling the strings. It's his manager, of course. Right?
Well, it's good. It's good because he's.
It is, but it's. I mean, come on, he's not going to fight Colby. There's no way Colby's going to fight him.
He's got to punch up, man, somehow, some way, right?
You're punching a number 1. I mean, let's be a little realistic here. If he's calling out Leon, I can understand because at least, like, there's the eye poke thing, but you're calling out Colby. Like, come on, man, that's not going to happen. Let's keep the questions going. Sorry, I don't want to clog things up here. Euro says Masvidal dropped all the way to 7. What do you guys think is next for him? I've always said this with Masvidal. He's a money fight guy. He's not going to, like, I feel like I have to give this disclaimer every time I do a live stream. Leon Edwards is not fighting Jorge Masvidal. Just get that out of your head. That's never happening. Masvidal has had opportunities to do it. Edwards, I think, is like, for Masvidal right now, that's not a fight he should be taking. He should be fighting guys that he can beat that are bigger names, like a Nate Diaz, like a Robbie Lawler. Like, those are type of fights that I think we'll see Masvidal do. They're going to be against name guys. Like, he's not going to fight a Sean Brady. He's going to be fighting guys that are, notable and he can make a good payday off of, and you can make him a main event on a fight night or put him on a pay-per-view main card. That's what I think is next for Masvidal. I'd be shocked if he fights like an up-and-comer.
I don't think we'll ever see Masvidal on a fight night. I think he's just purely pay-per-view. I think that's that's probably in his contract. Either he's a main event or co-main event. You know what I mean? He pulls in good numbers for the, for the company. So who does he fight next? There's only 2 fights there's only 2 fights, right? Because he's gonna want the money. It looks like Jorge's moving on with his life a little bit and having businesses open up. He's got that promotion going on, right? Yeah. So it's like I see if he does return to fight, it's something big like McGregor or Nate. That's the only fight.
I've always said they should make the McGregor fight. That is a huge fight that they could make. I have no idea who wins that one. A lot of people are like, of course, Moswell will destroy him. And then I have other people saying, of course, McGregor's going to knock him out. It's like, anyways. So yeah, I want to see that fight just from a pure intrigue standpoint of what happens. Of course, McGregor's got to get past Poirier. We've got that fight coming up, not to look past that, but that's something to keep in mind as well. Jose Flores, why does Kelvin keep getting top 5 opponents? Well, it's timing, right? Like
short notice.
Yeah, it's short notice, and also like who else is available, right? Vettori just fought for the title. Cannonier's fighting. Well, I guess he's fighting Cannonier now, which makes sense. Costa's out of the equation. Jack Hermanson just fought Shabazian. Jack Hermanson was fishing last time I talked to him, so I don't think he's ready to go. Hall is fighting Sean Strickland, so it's just the reason Gaslam's getting it's 2 things. He's got a good manager. I'll give him that in terms of getting fights, and then also it's just right place, right time. That's what's happening there. So
yeah, I think they're kind of rewarding him for taking that late notice fight against Whitaker, right? That was short notice, I believe. And then this one's also he's stepping in for Paulo Costa. That's short notice. So if you're gonna step in short notice and you're sitting at that, like, what is he? He's sitting at number 9. You might as well take the short notice fights against top 5 guys because what you have the ability to beat them, right? You've shown that. So why not take another chance against Cannonier? I think in the top 5, you know, Brunson and maybe Cannonier are like the better matchups for Gastelum.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. On the same note of middleweight, Jose Flores, do you think when it's all said and done, Ian Heinisch will reach top 5 status? The problem, like, I like that Heinisch, so if people don't know, Heinisch has completely moved down to Florida. He's full-time at Sanford. I talked to him, I think it was last week. So that's good. I think that's a good fit for him. I don't know what happened at Factory X, but I do think that, you know, him being at another camp now, especially that camp as well, is, you know, probably better for him at this point. But the problem with Heinisch, unfortunately, is that like he's won a lot of good fights. Like if you look at his record, like overall in the UFC, it's been good. He got that quick win over Gerald Meerschaert, but that's the only fight, the Meerschaert one, where he's really done something where like, wow, like that's like, you need to wow not only the fans, but the promotion as well. And you got to do something. A lot of his wins are decisions, and they're closer fights. They're not like fights where you're like, you know, whatever. So right now, I'll say no, but anything can change. If he goes out in this next fight and gets a first round finish, or he looks like dominant, then I might change my mind there. But I think right now, with what we've seen from Ian Heinisch, I don't get the sense that he beats a Darren Till. He beats a Calvin. Well, he obviously didn't beat Calvin Gastelum. He doesn't beat a Jared Cannonier. So that's where I sort of sit right now, because those are top 5 guys.
Man, his next fight is a tough fight, dude. It's a guy that not many people know about unless you watch like almost all the events. And he's just dangerous as hell, man. If Ian could go in there, like you said, and take this guy out, because he's kind of like a prospect in the division, then, you know, they'll probably give him a top 15 guy. But I don't know, man. It's going to be hard. It's like a hard climb, man, in that middleweight division, you know. That's why when you look at someone like Derek Brunson that's been around for that long and he's ranked 5th, it's amazing to see.
Yeah. Where does Jack Hermanson fit into all this? Well, that's a great question. So Hermanson coming back in the win column against Edmund Shabazian. He didn't actually, I mean, Shabazian, I think, won that first round, but Hermanson was still able to get the win. Hermanson still got a great ground game. Speaking of Calvin Gastelum, he's still the only guy to submit Gastelum like in the first round, you know, which is very impressive there. You know, did lose to Cannonier, but he's had some good wins. He beat Jacare, if you remember, a little while back as well. Hermanson's right in the mix. I think we're going to wait to see what happens with some of these fights as they sort of unfold a little bit. If Paulo Costa wants to come back, I think that's an option you could do with Hermanson and him. Maybe do the winner of Hall and Strickland for you know, Jack Hermanson. I think we'll have to see. He's up there. He's kind of, I think he's ahead of that sort of that gatekeeper status. I think he's a little bit further ahead, but we'll see. He's in a good spot though. I think, you know, just what he's got, the loss to Vettori, which is short notice, and then the loss to Cannonier recently. But outside of that, he's won most of his fights. So
I think they're gonna match him up with Costa. I think since Costa, you know, he's not fighting right now. Is that real? Those pictures of him like getting a hair transplant?
I don't know, but bad time to do it, man. You got to fight. Like I was talking to Hermanson about this. I said, you know, don't you think the Costa stock could not be lower? He hasn't fought since the Izzy fight. He's supposed to have, you know, a couple fights that fell through, and then now he's out, and then there's the whole pay thing. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Like this was the guy who was undefeated. Everyone, a lot of people were convinced that he was going to knock out Adesanya, and that never happened.
I was convinced too, man.
No, like, I picked Adesanya in that fight. I think Costa, the win over Romero is probably his best win, and even that was close. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, he's finished a lot of guys, but you know, I think that's it. All he is a striker. He's not much of anything else. So Adesanya sort of showed that in the fight. Early pick for Luque versus Chiesa. We'll do a preview of that in depth coming up here soon.
Yeah.
I forget who I picked initially, but I've thought about it a little bit. I think Luque wins that. We'll see. Luque is just a little bit more proven in the division. He's got the knockout power. Chiesa's a big guy though. Chiesa's definitely evolved in his skill set as well. But I think I like Luque there. I don't know. He's just shown me a bit more.
Mark my words. Chiesa is the new wave John Fitch. Mark my words.
All right.
He's going to start beating people, but it's not going to look pretty. But he's going to beat them, and he's going to rise up the ranks. Just mark my words.
J-Spec Driver, how badly does Colby need a new shtick? He's lost about 150K followers. Is that worry?
What?
Has he really?
That's a trip.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that could, I'd like to see the numbers on if he's lost that many people. But look, I think at this point, just continue to be controversial and say things. And that's his thing, right? Like, here's the thing. Like, you can disagree with how Colby's promoting himself. You can disagree with his political views. I understand all that, but he said it himself. The UFC basically told him he was boring and he needed to do something else. And this is the monster that UFC's created. So if you don't like it, it's a product of him trying to stand out, and it's worked because he's gotten big fights. He's gotten, an interim title when he fought RDA. He's got the Usman fight. I mean, right now we'll see, but yeah, I think, and he's a good, and that's the worst thing is that he's a good fighter. It's just that a lot of that stuff sort of blinds people to what he's done. But I just, I don't know. I just think if he had stayed how he was, I don't know if he'd be where he is now. Who knows if he'd even be in the UFC. So
he'd be in the PFL.
I don't think he needs a new shtick. I think he's got to keep doing what he's doing. Like, I remember people made a big deal about how he didn't acknowledge Usman for beating him or whatever. I don't think you do that if you're Colby. You got to be the villain. You got to not say anything. You got to not do any media, all that stuff, right? So
yeah, but man, 150K followers, that is worrisome.
I don't think that means that. Cody Garbrandt has like 1 million followers on Instagram. I don't think it makes a difference with, what's going on in his career, but I don't know. Teach their own.
Yeah.
Usman can't even tell his weed stories correctly. Watch JRE and laugh. Well, I haven't seen that. I'll have to check
I haven't watched JRE since he went over to Spotify. I haven't watched.
Yeah, I watch the clips on YouTube. I don't really have a lot of time to listen to podcasts. The only time I listen to podcasts is when I'm mowing my lawn or I'm doing laundry, and that's maybe like 40 minutes, not even. Well, it doesn't take me 40 minutes to do laundry, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Let's go to Hassan 6. Any word on the location of the Till fight? Well, Tapology has it listed in London, England, but I don't know if that's 100% confirmed yet.
They want it to be in London, England.
Of course they do.
Really, really want it. So it all depends on when the date gets closer. Is England going to be able to open up for the UFC to go over there? And it doesn't look so good, man. It doesn't look good at all. I mean, I've heard a lot of things about, maybe New York City later this year, some massive event out there. Of course they're going to go back to Houston, Chicago. I heard that they're talking about going there, and they really want to go to Russia too this year. Because it feels like they want to do a show out there. You know what I mean? These are things that I've just been hearing behind the scenes, right? So hopefully it does become true, because it's great to see the UFC go internationally in different countries instead of just staying in America. What's the update on you getting over to the US?
It's going to be next year.
Okay.
Because regardless of, like, I still have to get my second vaccine, which is going to be in September. And that's right when my son's going to be born. So, yeah, it's just like, it's not worth it. Maybe I could squeeze in an event at the end of the year type thing, but I just think it's probably better to just wait unless they do some mega card at the end of the year in Vegas. Because that's the thing. I'm not that far from Vegas. I'm like 2-hour plane ride. So it's doable. It's just being away for that long. The reason, like, I could go now, I think it's just the quarantining. Like, especially after interviewing Tanner Bozer and hearing what he had to go through just to get to this OSP fight. And I know we have a question in that. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I don't want to bother. It's too much time away from my family. So it's better that I stay here, do my interviews. And, I'm still surviving, but I would like to get back to events. Like, I haven't been to an event since December of 2019. So it's been a while. Let's get to Noah. He says, my 2 favorite guys to watch on Wednesday morning. I appreciate that. What about the rest of the week? You don't like watching us? No. What's up? Honestly, wouldn't mind seeing Leon and Bilal running it back, especially if they book Colby versus Usman next, which I'm hoping they do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if unless it's like really looking like Leon's not going to get that title shot or something. I don't know. Like, cause like I see it from Leon's perspective as well, where it's like, what is Bilal ranked right now? He's number 9. Leon's number 3. The only reason Bilal even got that fight was because Chimaev was out and they needed someone. So he took it. So I don't know if Leon wants to do that again. I mean, unless he really feels like he had his number in the first one and maybe he's like, okay, well, I'll just keep active and do it. Maybe that happens. But I don't think Bilal has a lot to stand on because of the fact that it was just it was a timing thing how he even got that fight. Normally, a number 9 guy is not fighting number 2 or whatever he is.
Yeah, and one thing about Leon too is you don't want to pressure luck. You know what I mean? Like eventually you're gonna lose. It's just fighting, right? And these guys are all the best in the world. You know, Bilal's number 9. He might not have like the most exciting fights, or he doesn't have all these finishes, but man, you could go in there and be unlucky, and the judges not see it your way, and you'll lose to Bilal. And then next thing you know, Bilal's number 3. You know what I mean? Like I think you wait. Leon needs to wait, man.
J-Spec Driver 702. How do you feel about OSP and his chances against Boser? I did a preview of this on my channel on Monday, youtube.com/LynchOnSports, with timestamps included, by the way. But honestly, like I kind of explained there, to me, it's a 50-50 fight because OSP is one of those guys where I can't even describe it. It's like he's so inconsistent. Like there's times when you think he's going to lose and he wins, like when he knocked out Corey Anderson or when he knocked out Alonzo Menafield. And then there's fights like Rothwell where he just had a bad performance. And then he gets knocked out by Jamal Hill. So I don't know what's going to happen. Boser's been on a weird run. Like if you look at his 2020 and look at the 2 wins he got and you're thinking, okay, this might be the guy to be a contender here. Cause you look before that, his only loss, I think, was to Cyril Gane, at least in the UFC. And now it's like he's once again, like, cause here's the thing with the Latifi fight, whether you thought he won or not, he was close to finishing Latifi in that second round. Like some refs might have even stopped it, but he wasn't able to get it done. And then Latifi just, did what he did, got the takedowns and stuff. So this seems like a fight where Boser could capitalize and just knock OSP's head off. But then OSP is one of those guys with his experience and his and everything else. And granted, he is moving up a weight class. It could be one of those fights where OSP surprises, maybe looks good on the ground. I don't know. So I'm picking Boser, but it's not confident because OSP is one of those guys that could absolutely spoil the party. So
yeah, he is a guy that sometimes you watch him and the way he performs, he looks like a top 5 contender, right? And then sometimes he goes out there and just shits the bed, right? Remember when he stepped in against Shogun and knocked him out? That's another highlight reel knockout that he has where everybody thought he was going to lose to Shogun, but he didn't. So when you look at it, also OSP, I believe in his he's fighting at heavyweight, right? So he weighed in, I believe, at 240.
It was 240.
Boser weighed in at like 235 in his last fight. So OSP could be weighing in. He could be much bigger than Boser, and OSP was fighting at light heavyweight, which it blows my mind, man, how that could even happen. But I don't know. Boser, he signed. I think he had to take this fight in a way because he got a brand new deal. I believe 6 fights or something, 4 fights.
Yeah, which is weird because when I interviewed him, he was like, I got to win this fight, I'm going to get cut. And then I'm like, and then the deal came out after, so I don't know if he knew that and he said that anyways, or maybe he got the deal after, I'm not sure. But look, I sort of told it to him and he basically told me, he's like, I can't even think like that. But I mean, he does have some things on his side. Number one, he's a young heavyweight, which is very rare. I think they give a little bit more leniency to that. He's Canadian, which, let's be honest here, there's not a lot of Canadians in the UFC right now because they've been cutting them all. And then 3, like he's a personality. Like he's one of my favorite fighters to interview because he's about as honest as it gets. And I don't know how this guy doesn't have his own podcast or show. Like he is hilarious. Not going to mention the media member, but remember that interview I sent to you a few weeks ago before his last fight where he just crucified the guy. Like it's so funny to watch him do stuff. And I know him well enough where like if he does say something where he gets upset, where he's coming from. But he's just, he's about as real as it gets, man. I love Tanner Boser.
Yeah, I've interviewed him a bunch of times too. And if you don't know him and you go into the interview, he will fuck with you. Like he's a guy that will like be, he'll stop and be like, look at you weird, right? Like when you ask something. So it's
but just because he's honest. He's honest.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Again, I'm not there's another interview not going to mention the journalist, but they're like, how does it feel about going against an opponent that has more experience? And I know what the journalist meant. They meant UFC experience as opposed to overall, because Tanner Boser definitely has, a ton of experience even prior to the UFC. And Boser's like, what are you talking about? I have way more fights in and it's just like the way he responded, it wasn't polite whatsoever, but that's just how he is. It was great. So
I like it. He's a challenge.
Early pick for Lee and Brady from Euro here.
Man,
it's an iffy one, man.
Going up. Lee's going up to welterweight. Brady's been
apparently he's getting stronger. I've been trying to get an interview with Kevin Lee for I don't know how long, man. I've literally gone back and forth with his management. I don't know how many times, and it's not against them because I know Kevin's a tough guy to pin down. Hopefully going to get that soon. But and even actually Sean Brady, I haven't been able to get him either. Normally I get him before every fight, so maybe he's not doing media. But anyways, back to the fight itself. I mean, I kind of feel like Brady should win, but this also seems like this was like the Gillespie fight, right? Undefeated guy, good, up and comer. I remember everyone was picking Gillespie in that fight and Lee knocks him out. Maybe that happens here. with Lee, looking better. And we got to remember, Lee just lost to Charles Oliveira. Like, I know people are going to forget about that. They're just going to look at the resume and look at, oh, he's lost to him in RDA and whatever. And they're like, okay, well, he lost. But I mean, Oliveira is the champ, right? So I'll pick Brady, but another close fight, I think, if you're looking at that one.
Well, if you look at Lee, he's not at TriStar. He's in Vegas.
No, he's in Vegas,
right?
yeah.
So ahead of the Gillespie fight, I believe that he was training.
He was at TriStar, correct. He wasn't there that long, but still, yeah, he was.
He was still there, right? Enough to where like they went over some game planning and put in some data into his brain to prepare for a Gillespie. But man, sometimes you gotta go with a proven product. And Lee, I believe he's just a little bit more proven than Brady. But man, Brady is a fire hydrant, man. Like, it's hard to pick, but if I was just gonna pick off the top of my head, I'll take Brady too. I think maybe he's the guy.
Let's get to a few more questions. We've got about 15 minutes left. We'll do maybe 5 more minutes, then do our underdog picks and get to some more questions. There's a few I do want to get to before we move on here. People forget that Leon turned down the title fight with Usman last July before Burns got it. Also fights with Neal and Wonderboy. Well, yeah, the Leon had to turn down that fight because he couldn't get out of the country, I believe, because of the COVID restrictions, or he didn't have a camp. It was one of the two. But it's like, you're not just going to step into a title fight off nothing. Moswell can, because it doesn't matter if he loses. With Leon, he had the winning streak, right? So it's a little bit different there as well. Noah, we've sort of already talked about OSP and Bozer already. Euro. If Brock and DC would have fought, who do you think would have taken it? I think Brock would have taken it. He's huge. Like, he would be way bigger than DC.
Yeah, he would have been. But DC
I know he's super skilled.
Even though he's a smaller heavyweight, but he's just like skill wise, I think he's just like way higher level than Brock ever was. I don't know. I think Brock, he didn't look like himself, and he was coming off a long layoff. If he did fight DC, I would have taken DC in that fight.
Jose Flores, I just checked, and Ali unfollowed Hamzat again. Thoughts? On a side note, David's branch also left Ali for first round years ago. That's one of the things that Ali used to sort of brag about, is that none of his clients leave, but there's plenty that have left. RDA, David Branch, Jason Jackson used to be with Ali. He left. So, I mean, it does happen, but if you manage enough fighters, that is going to end up happening anyways. But yeah, I did notice that. So if you guys remember on my channel, I made a video about, did Hamzat leave, dominance? And I made a mistake, actually. Initially, it looked like Ali didn't unfollow Hamzat on Instagram. I think I spelled Chimaev's name wrong. And then I got all these people saying, oh, you're lying. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just cut that part of the video and make my apologies, whatever. But now he did unfollow him, and he's not on the website. He was on the website back in January. There's something there, man. Like, if he's purposely getting taken off the website, if Ali's purposely not following him, if Hamzat's not following Ali, there's something there. Now, forget about Twitter, because we know that Ali manages his fighters' Twitter accounts a lot of the times, right? There was that famous one years ago where someone was tweeting Frankie Edgar, and then Ali from his own account says, "I'll finish him in the third," right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember something about that. Yeah, I do.
So I think there's something to it. Which, there's all that stuff with Kadyrov. I'm not going to get into that, but there's something there, because obviously Hamzat and Habib have had a bit of a falling out. So I think that's part of the reason why they may have split. But hey, it might be good news for me. I might get to interview the guy. So
hey, speaking of what is it? Changing management. Mackenzie Dern sides with Paradigm. I didn't see that happening, man.
When did that happen?
That happened yesterday.
Did it really? Oh, I missed that. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I got an email, and then it was on Twitter too that she signed.
I didn't get the email.
Full representation with Paradigm. So her new manager is Tim Simpson.
Wow, good for them. Poor Danny Rube, but they still got a lot of good fighters under their stable. It's a lot of interesting ones that have moved around in terms of management switch-ups. There's a few I noticed the other day. Manuel Cape's the big one for me. He left first round to go to Ali. That's happened a couple times. Olenek was another guy that was with first round and left them as well. So I always find that stuff interesting. So yeah, that's crazy. That has happened. Let's get to our underdog picks for this weekend, and then we can even do a couple. Just we can talk quickly about the PFL if we want and all that as well. Okay, underdog pick. I feel like there was one I liked this week. What was it? Let me just have a quick look here. Actually, maybe you want to get yours first, and then I'll give you mine.
I gotta
put you on the spot here, John.
On the screen, you know what I mean. So we're doing the UFC, right? So
yeah, the UFC. Yeah, we'll do that one.
This weekend is gone. Okay, so my underdog pick is Volkov.
Oh,
I think Volkov.
Yeah, that was the one. But anyways, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
I did pick Volkov as well. But it's fine. It's fine. We can talk about why we both agree on that. We can do that.
Okay. I feel like Volkov, like if he does sit there and stand and trade with Gane, Like Gane, he looked like he's very comfortable on the feet, right? And
Mhm.
and if they go point for point, I think Volkov might be able to outstrike him. You know what I mean? Because he is, I believe he is taller than Gane, longer than Gane, right? And has much, the experience has to be a factor, right, in the striking too. So, he did great against Rosenstrike, but Rosenstrike just was too patient. I feel Volkov will be impatient and he'll probably end up going in there and try to engage a little bit more. Yeah, he's 6'7". Yeah, the reach is long, man. I think he has it, man. I think he can go in there as the underdog pick. But there's a bunch of underdogs here, right?
There's a few. I actually have another one I'll go with, but I do want to sort of piggyback off what you said.
Mhm.
Like at some point, Gane's lack of experience is going to catch up to him. It has to, right? Like it just doesn't. Like at some point, it's gotta come crashing down, I would think. And Volkov just has so much more experience. The thing I look at, and I talked about Jim West with Jim West about this yesterday, is that Volkov is just a tough guy to put away. Like Blades wasn't able to put him away. And believe it or not, Blades is a finisher. If you look at his overall career, he's got a lot of finishes in there. It's just that he couldn't finish Volkov, I think, because Volkov is very durable. The Derek Lewis fight, he got knocked out at the very last second. That was a fight he was going to win a decision. You have to go all the way back to 2013, the last time Volkov was finished, and it was against Minikov. I revealed my hand there, but that's like, this is a very tough guy to put away. So if Gane can't put him away, we've seen that he can go the distance, but with Volkov's length and reach and all that, and if it stays standing, I think there's a good opportunity there for Volkov to potentially either win a decision or maybe get a finish here. Because again, I just think that Gane has not really been tested that much. His best win is Rosenstrike, and that was a win that he did get, and it was a good game plan, not an exciting fight. But I mean, the JDS win, isn't really what he is, but Volkov, I think, might be one of the most underrated heavyweights in the division right now. And the only reason he lost to Blades is because Blades out wrestled him. Gane's not going to do that. He might, but I highly doubt he's even got the pedigree that Blades does. So I'm with you there. I like Volkov as well. I was surprised that he was plus money just because of the experience. And I get it because, Gane's undefeated. And this might be the fight where Gane surprises us all and finishes Volkov. And then we talk about, we're going to be here on, next week talking about how he's a title contender, but I don't think he's there yet, but we'll see. Supposed to get an interview with him. Didn't work out. Kind of a bummer, but what are you going to do? My underdog pick this week is one. I'll have to change it on the app, but I'm going to go a little bold here. I think Jai Herbert's got a shot to beat Moicano. I look at Moicano and I look at the damage he's taken in his career over the last little bit. Also, by the way, it doesn't look like Moicano's doing much media. Cole, I don't know if you're in the chat, if you were able to get him, but I wasn't. So that makes me think he's not doing much media ahead of this fight. But I just look at the fights that and granted, he's losing to good guys. It's not like, Moicano is losing to guys that are, subpar, so to speak. But you look at how quickly he's been finished these last couple of fights. Fiziev knocked him out in the first round. The Korean Zombie knocked him out in the first round in 58 seconds. Aldo knocked him out in round 2. That's in 3 of his last 4 fights. I know he's not an old guy, right? He's 32, but that's a lot of damage to take over the last couple of fights. Now, Jai Herbert was finished in his last fight as well, right? So, I mean, that's something. And it was against a guy in Prezaias who's not really, Trinaldo. I always get those two mixed up. He's a tough guy to finish as well. But still, I mean, I think overall you look at, he has knockout power. Most of his wins are by stoppage. So the only reason I'm going with this one, I looked at the rest of the card. I'm like, I don't know if I could see another spot here, but I could see Herbert potentially knocking Moicano out here. And I would maybe look at the knockout prop as a possibility. But I think there's some value here on Herbert because I think Moicano maybe not as good as we thought he was. Yes, he's got the win over Cater. Yes, he's got some other good wins, but there are times when, like, I don't know, I just think he's taken a lot, and I think this is a spot where Herbert could take advantage here. So I know Moicano's a minus 240 favorite, but I think there could be some value on Jai Herbert. What do you think of that fight?
Yeah, I think so too. But I'm picking Moicano. I think Moicano's
He's
more
a better
diverse.
fighter. I mean,
Yeah,
on
he's
paper,
a
yeah.
better fighter. And I think that this is a fight that they're kind of, allowing him to have, because if you look at his last 4 fights, it's just like a murderer's roll of superstars, right? Elite level title challengers. I think they're giving him a step back in competition. This is his opportunity. I think he goes in there and gets it done.
We're going to move backwards here a little bit quickly, and then we'll try and get maybe a question or two in. Bellator has got a card going on this weekend. I only really wanted to talk about the main event. I'm not sure how much you know about it, but Tim Johnson looking to continue that winning streak, taking on Valentin Moldavsky. I think that's how you say it, but he's that 10-1 Russian fighter. I'm really intrigued by this one because Johnson's got the experience. Moldavsky is obviously the up-and-comer, and he's looked really good, so early in his career here. Do you have a pick in that one? I am going to take the Russian in the fight, but I think this is an opportunity where Johnson could maybe surprise some people. We'll see.
Yeah, if you scroll down, you can see my pick. It is the Russian.
There you go.
Yeah,
I
there
also
you go.
like I like as an underdog. I think Daniel Weichel could beat Keone Diggs. Another thing, Weichel's got 52 fights. Diggs has got 9, and Diggs has not been that active lately. So
Yeah,
I think there's an opportunity there.
You're reading my mind. I picked Daniel Weichel to win this fight too.
There we go. We're on the same page there. I think Miles Jury beats Sydney Outlaw. I think Carmouche beats. How do you pronounce her last name? I want to ask you. You probably know.
Watanabe.
Watanabe. I've always been saying it wrong. Yeah, those are the only fights I was really looking at there. Quickly go to PFL. Not much to talk about there with PFL 6. Again, they're going head to head on Friday, which I'm not sure whose idea that was, but not much really notable on the undercard at all. But the heavyweight fight between Goltsov and Brandon Sayes is kind of interesting. Sales, I should say. Sales was the guy that beat Mo Usman in his last fight. I think that had more to do with Usman not really showing up than Sales getting the win per se. Yeah. I think Goltsov runs him over. I like him in that fight. This Lance Palmer and Movlead fight is very interesting here. I believe they have the same manager. And if you're Lance Palmer and you're coming off a dominant loss to Bubba Jenkins, this is not the fight you want to be bouncing back with. Palmer, once again, a underdog in this fight. I'm going with the Russian here, but this maybe Palmer surprises here. But I think maybe that last fight showed that Palmer's kind of on the decline at this point. It's 34, right?
Maybe, man, maybe. But I'm gonna go with Palmer in this one. But
actually, I took Palmer, I guess, as well. Maybe I think there's some upset potential there. I'm not sure, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it was because of the value there. Co-main event: Pettis and Roush Manifo. This looks like kind of a gimme fight. I think Pettis will bounce back. I don't think he'll finish though. I think he'll get a decision in this one.
Yeah, I think he's gonna come back. He just had I believe he just had a new baby.
Yeah, so, he did. Dad Pettis. We'll see if that's a thing.
Dad Pettis is a thing. I think it's gonna happen. So I'm taking Pettis in this one too.
Main event, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I know some people are higher on Cindy Danwa than a lot of others are, including our good friend Drake Riggs. Kayla Harrison's winning in the first round. You heard it.
Of course, man. I don't know, man. Kayla Harrison, it's going to be hard to pick against her. Let's just say that. It's going to be very hard to pick against her unless she's fighting like a Nunez or a Cyborg or somebody at that high level, right? With much more experience than her. Kayla just has this skill set where it's like it's hard to see her as an underdog. Spot. Yeah, because
here's the problem: like she is very good, but how good is she? Because she's fighting women that, let's be honest, for the most part, a lot of them would not be in the UFC, right? Yeah. Like she doesn't get, like if she was a bantamweight, this would be a totally different story. She could fight like a Betchkahea and at least see how you are. You know what I mean? Like it would be a little bit different here, but. Yeah, she's just so good. And I saw the PFL CEO, what's his name, Don, whatever his name is. He was upset because ESPN didn't put her as one of like the pound for pound women. But I agree with the voters where it's like she just hasn't fought anyone to like warrant her being in that spot. And I honestly think the only way we're going to find out that is if she goes to Bellator, because the UFC does not have fighters in her weight class. They don't. If you're Bellator, you sign Megan Anderson. You've got Julia Budd's a free agent. I would assume she's going to resign. You've got Janae Harding. You've got Leah McCourt. You've got, they've got a lot of fighters over there that can challenge Kayla and give her some opposition, right? That's what it comes down to. So,
yeah, Kayla's just, you're right. She's just in a tough spot. And to be honest with you, this is her last year with PFL. I believe she leaves. I think she
goes to the UFC. Maybe they make a division around her. We'll see. By the way, quick, producer Michael in the chat says, is letting us know that apparently more people are picking Sales as the underdog for PFL. So that's interesting. Maybe people buying into the whole Mo Usman fight, but
they are, because that's what they see on the record, right? And then they see the name, so they're like, okay, he must be good. So they're gonna pick him. But
we'll take 2 more questions here, guys. Again, if you missed, if we don't get your question here, just post it in the comments or hit us up on social media. We'll gladly answer it there. Thoughts on Colby saying managers are like rats and that's why he manages himself. At some point I agree with him. It would be interesting subject to discuss. Yeah, I agree. I think for certain fighters management works. I think ultimately managers do help with fight bookings. Like that's one thing I will never disagree with Ali on, is that he definitely gets his fighters good fights. Sponsorships though, I was talking to someone the other day about, some of the fighters that he manages. What big sponsors are they getting? I know Vittori got Dolce & Gabbana or one of those things. But I don't know if Ali set that up. Maybe that's something he did. I'm not sure. Maybe they came to him because he's Italian. Like, I'm not sure. But you don't see a lot of the fighters getting these big sponsorship deals. It's in general, like I've heard that from a lot of different management. Like Iridium, I will give them credit. I mean, I do see a lot of their fighters posting stuff with sponsor stuff, but nothing like significant, not like a huge thing. Although saying that, I think, doesn't Chito Vera have something with Pepsi in Ecuador, I think? Or he's doing something with them? I don't know. I forget. But
those fighters that have like countries behind them,
Yeah.
it's different for them. But you know, like every manager has different contracts or stipulations with fighters, right? Some managers only manage their fights, right? They only negotiate contracts for their fights, and the fighter takes care of whatever else, right? Some fighters, they have like another manager that takes care of the sponsorships, right? So not every manager is taking care of every single thing, because I kind of like dove into that with some managers that manage, UFC high level fighters, and asked them about it and said, yeah, some fighters don't have the same type of deal that I have with this fighter. You know what I mean? Like these companies, they have different, stipulations in their contract. So we cannot blame the manager too much just because they're not getting a sponsorship, because maybe that's not their job. Maybe that's not their responsibility for those fighters.
Yeah, it's certainly very interesting. That's definitely something maybe we could do on another podcast and discuss the whole way the media industry works and all that. Good time to wrap things up, everyone. Again, just a reminder to download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. We have our picks in there. Again, you can talk some smack. If we're right, we're wrong, doesn't matter. We're more than happy to be interactive with you guys. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the like button as well. It's an easy way to support the channel. You don't have to pay anything. It's all good. I really appreciate that. John, anything you got coming up this week that you want to share with us before we get out of here?
Well, I just dropped the Angela Lee interview.
I can't believe you'd never interviewed her before, by the way.
No, I've never interviewed her before, but it was great to talk to her. And yeah, she just had a baby, and now she's on her path back to the title, or defending the title. And I just interviewed Gilbert Burns. That's doing really well.
Yeah.
And then a couple of PFL, Janae Fabi and Caitlin Young. Other than that, you know what I mean? Just go to my channel, Kumite TV or whatever, and you can check it out.
There you go. I got a really big interview tomorrow. Not going to reveal it. Just a little teaser. If you want to know off air, John, I'll let you know. Excited about that one, but not a lot going on. I'm actually looking more towards next week. We're kind of coming up to the end of the month, so I'm kind of hit my quota. And there's just, we don't have a UFC card next weekend, so there's a bit of a gap in between fights. So yeah, going to just be doing that interview tomorrow. I got another interview today, and not a lot going on. I'm going golfing today. That's why I got the shirt on. I'm going to be going and hitting the links. We're getting a heat wave here in Vancouver, so it's been great. Speaking of which, did you know Angela Lee is from Vancouver? She was born here.
Yeah, I see that. She's on
cool. A lot of people don't know she's Canadian, so there you go.
So
I mean, she grew up in Hawaii, but still, we'll claim her as one of our own. So
yeah, you got it.
For myself, for JHK, for producer Michael, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week previewing an upcoming notable fight. Again, if we missed your question, hit us up on social media, leave a comment on the video. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the fights this weekend, because we get a break next week. So enjoy it. Enjoy the weather wherever you are, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching.
Peace.